Oh, hi. What's up, my peoples? Welcome back to another episode of The Wheel Life. My name is John, and on today's episode, I am going to answer a question that I've been asked multiple times by multiple people over the years, and that is, do I miss walking? So without any further ado, let's get into it. Let's go. So, do I miss walking anymore? Well, let me tell you something. To be honest with you, walking is not something that I even really think about all that much anymore. So ever since my initial injury, I have just been so grateful to God to be alive after all that I had been through that I never really had the time to wonder, am I gonna walk again? And I never really put much time or energy into that aspect of my injury. Right from the get-go, I've just been grateful to be here, and I just want to take the life that God has given me and find out how I can live it as independently as possible and how I can be the most joyful person that I can be. So that's kind of the camp that I've always been in. I just want to live my life and push forward and enjoy the time I have here on this earth, because I know when I get to heaven, I'm getting out of this chair and I'm walking. So I'm not that really heartbroken about not walking on this earth. But getting back to the topic of this video, which is, do I miss walking? And to answer that as bluntly as I can, yes, I do. I mean, really, who wouldn't? We live in a world that caters to able-bodied people, and we live in a system that is bent towards making the lives of those with a disability even harder than it should be. So yeah, I guess if I sit here and I stop and think about it, I do miss walking, but really there is so much more that goes along with living with a spinal cord injury than just walking. Walking, it's not just some magical make life better antidote, and I want to share the things with you today that I actually miss more than walking. And just a little PSA here before I dive into these things that I miss. This video isn't looking for pity. This isn't a video to make you feel bad for me or my circumstances. God has blessed me with a wonderful, wonderful life, and I love my life. But that doesn't mean that there are not aspects of my old life that I do not miss. So let's get into it. Let's get into a quick little list of things that I miss more than walking. First off, and this one's a biggie, I miss having hand function. How much easier do I feel life would be if I just had the ability to use my hands? As a C6 quadriplegic, I can't open or close my fingers. I have no real functional hand function. At the beginning of my injury, I used to just think, man, I wish if I was gonna be in a wheelchair, I just had use of my hands. But I learned over time to overcome that and function pretty well with the hands that I have. It's kind of funny when you look at other people who are paralyzed or have gone through hardships. If you are paralyzed from the neck down, you usually see people who want use of their arms. If you are paralyzed as a quad with some arm function like I am, people want use of their hands. And if you are paralyzed as a paraplegic with full use of their upper body, they want use of their legs. And if you see an amputee, they want use of their whole entire limb, right? The bottom line is we all want something we can't have. And that is true for disabled people, and that is true for able-bodied people. Another thing that I miss greatly about being an able-bodied person is not having to worry about accessibility everywhere I go. I cannot even begin to tell you how inaccessible the world is to wheelchair users. It is literally insane, and in my humble opinion, it is a form of segregation. Whenever I make plans to go somewhere or do something, I always have to make sure where we are going is accessible, because if I show up somewhere and it's not accessible, let me tell you, it can be really frustrating and kind of embarrassing when you have to turn around and go home because you can't get in the building that you want to. I let my guard down in this respect when I took my niece to breakfast the other morning. I forgot to call ahead and check if the restaurant was accessible. We show up there, and first thing we noticed was there's no handicap spots at all. Not that they weren't available, but they were not there at all. And then we get out of the van after parking in a regular spot and struggling to get out. We go up to the door, and there's 2 steps to get in. Thankfully, my niece was with me and she helped me in, but if I showed up alone, I would have had to leave. The people who ran the restaurant, you know, they were really nice and they felt really bad, and they said, you know, this is an old building, but therein lies a massive problem with accessibility. If your business or building was built before 1990, it does not have to meet accessibility requirements. And I am sorry, but that is a law that needs to change, and it needs to be changed ASAP. So to say that I miss not having to worry about accessibility is a massive understatement. Getting to something else I miss about being able-bodied is that I miss not being in pain 24/7. If you know me personally or you follow me on social media, you know that one of the hardest things that I deal with is being in pain 24/7 with what's called neuropathic pain, right? Nerve pain for short. The pain that I deal with, it is unrelenting and it literally never stops. You know, I have no recollection or memory of what it feels like to be pain-free for even 5 minutes. But I know pre-injury, you know, I never dealt or experienced with anything close to what nerve pain feels like. And man, I would just love to hop in a time machine and be able to just experience 5 minutes of a pain-free life. That would be epic in my mind. If I had to pick between being pain-free in a wheelchair or walking and being able-bodied, but being in the same kind of nerve pain, I would pick being pain-free and in a wheelchair all day. Another thing that I miss about being able-bodied is not having to worry so much. Again, if you know me personally or follow me on social media, you will know that over these 14 years of being in this wheelchair, one thing that I have constantly struggled with is my anxiety and my PTSD, my post-traumatic stress disorder. And one thing that I have learned over these 14 years is that anxiety and PTSD is just as crippling and debilitating as a physical handicap. Over the years, I have learned how to manage my anxiety and PTSD, but I do not think that there is a day that goes by that I don't have some form of anxiety playing in the back of my mind. I don't think that there has been a night in 14 years that I have laid my head down on my pillow to sleep that in the back of my mind that I am not worried just a little bit that I will not wake up in the morning. These worries, they stem from all that I have been through post-injury, and I never have had an anxiety attack or a PTSD problem pre-injury. So I would love to go back in time and just live a day, just one day without worry. No worries about my health, no worries about my wheelchair, my skin, infections, no worries about any of that. Really sounds like a day well spent. Another thing that I miss about being able-bodied is being able to have control over my bowel and bladder. I'm gonna keep this one pretty short and pretty simple because it's pretty self-explanatory. A spinal cord injury, like I've mentioned in other videos, affects how you can control your bowel and bladder. And since my injury, I have had to retrain my bowel and bladder using a suppository and a catheter. And in my humble opinion, bowel and bladder care is literally the worst part of living with a spinal cord injury. If I had the ability to use my bowel and bladder like I could pre-injury, this whole wheelchair thing would be a walk in the park. The last thing that I'm going to talk about that I miss about being able-bodied is that I miss not having to ask for help. Besides my bowel and bladder care, one of my very least favorite things about this injury is having to ask others for help. There are a lot of things in my life that I can do independently, but there are also many simple tasks that require me to ask the help of others. One thing that is constantly in the back of my mind is, am I a burden to those around me? My mom and my sister have helped take care of me since day one of my injury, and they have never ever, not even once, made me feel like a burden. So this is something that I struggle with because I make myself feel that way in my own mind. That's just how my brain works, but it's not because of the help around me. Oftentimes, when I need help, I will wait till I feel it is the right moment and opportunity, that it won't disrupt what others are doing, and it won't make me feel like I'm asking too much. I would love just to live for one day where I did not have to ask for one thing from anybody, where I could get up at midnight and grab myself a snack or grab something I want to use without having to ask someone to do it for me. I miss the spontaneity of being able to do things when and how I want without having to feel like I'm asking too much of the people around me. That would be a solid day well spent, in my opinion. So to end this video, yes, I miss walking, but it's more than just walking. I miss the things that stem from walking, like I talked about in this video. It hurts my heart to think of how much easier my life and the lives of those around me would be had I not gotten injured. But then I look around at my life, I look at the relationship I have with my family, I think about all the ways that God has blessed me and the relationship that I have with Him, and I honestly wouldn't trade it for the world. I am grateful to live this life, and I only miss these things when I really stop and think about it. If you are newly injured and watching this video, please know that it gets better. Your attitude, it determines your altitude. So that's my video. I hope everyone is staying safe, keeping the faith. I will be back soon. Hope y'all have a good week. I'll talk to you later. Let's go.